Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Failing is Not an Option, where we are all things marriage and family therapy, but not just for the exam, but also for how we are working with our clients, whether they are families, couples, individuals, or group, whatever the case may be. I know that not everyone is able to join the Wednesday night study group, but have no fear because we are going to do it right here. I am going to go over some of those questions. I just want to say again, we had some great discussions come about with some of these questions. I enjoy each and every one of the questions, each and every one of the insight and the input that you give. Without further ado, let's dive into these. I am going to try to make this video not very long. So when I see it's hitting that 25 minute, I'm just going to stop and we can review the questions again. So first question is here, and as usual, pause the video, see if you can find the best answer before I find the best answer. Alrighty, let's go. A couple has nearly completed therapy for infidelity recovery. Trust has been rebuilt, communication is improved, and treatment goals are met. In the termination session, the wife says, now that we've fixed this, we need to deal with my mother moving in that's been causing us stress. What should the therapist do? So now, as usual, let's go back. Let's get some of those facts that we need that is going to lead us to finding the best answer, such as those breadcrumbs that is going to be the basis of us finding the correct answer. They've nearly completed therapy. Pay attention. The treatment goals have already been met. They are now in the termination session, but there's this new issue that's coming up with them, right? So A says, acknowledge the new concern and collaboratively decide whether it fits within the current therapy goals or whether referral or continued work is warranted. B says, tell the couple that since their presented problem is resolved, termination is necessary. The issue with B is it doesn't mention anything about them working collaboratively with the couple. And termination is collaborative, right? So B is going to automatically be out. C says, acknowledge the new concern and collaboratively decide to begin a new treatment plan. The issue with C is, why are we starting a new treatment plan? Right? We don't need to. We already have a treatment plan. We just want to see if we can just add to this treatment plan or if this couple needs to be referred out all in all. How do we know that this therapist is going to be competent enough to even work with the new issue that's coming on? That's why C wouldn't be the best answer. D says refer them to another therapist to begin working on the new issue. Now, the issue with D is they're in the termination session. Nothing about termination is being brought up with how you're going to collaboratively work on termination, so D would not be the best answer. But if you take a look at A, acknowledge that they have a new concern, and collaboratively decide whether it fits within the current therapy goals or whether they need to be referred out or if continued work can be warranted. Question includes about them in the termination session. Somewhere in that answer, termination must be included. Let's not forget that they've met their goals. Can I add to this treatment plan or do I need to refer them out if I'm not competent enough, right? Leaving A to be the best answer. A therapist has been treating a client for depression for nearly a year. The client has made substantial progress and has achieved most treatment goals. During the termination session, the client says, I'm proud of what I've accomplished, but I'm also scared. Sometimes when I think about being on my own, I wonder if life is even worth it. Don't worry, I'm not planning anything, but those thoughts come up. Before we look at the question, let's go back. We've got some red flags that are flagging here, and I think we need to take a look at it, right? Substantial progress has been made. They've met their treatment goals, but there is some suicidal ideation in this question. No matter how minor, no matter how small, read the quotations. I'm proud of what I have accomplished, but I'm also scared. Sometimes when I think about being on my own, I wonder if life is even worth it. That is a red flag that should be ringing in your head, and you cannot ignore it. If you were taking the real MFT National Exam, you should have highlighted what is written in those quotation marks, and that is going to lead you to your best answer. A says normalize the client's fear of ending therapy and reinforce relapse prevention skills. I get it. When we see the word normalize, it's like, it's pretty, right? It's nice to see that word because, okay, well, let's just normalize, that he's ending therapy and those are his fears. But A ignores the red flag, which is the suicide ideation, making A not the best answer. B says explore the client's statement further. I like B, but let's look at the rest of them. C says remind the client of their progress. C is also, again, ignoring the red flag, which is the suicidal ideation, making C not your best answer. D says extend until the client is stable. Well, here's the thing about D. It's also ignoring the red flag that there's suicidal ideation. And it's not paving way to what he has said, making D wrong. You can extend therapy until they're stable, but why? It's not enough information given to us. But if you take a look at B, B says to explore the client's statement further. We need to know what he means. Like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? You wonder if life is not even worth it, you know? When you have suicidal ideation in a question, stay away from words that tells you to normalize or encourage. You need to be paving way to the red flag that is in the vignette, which is, I wonder if life is even worth it. It's low risk, but you still cannot ignore it when you see that in a question. A therapist is preparing to terminate with the family they've worked with for 2 years. The therapist feels sad about ending, especially since they have grown close to the children. Now, let's take a look back at this again. It's not the client that is feeling sad about the therapy ending. It's the therapist that is feeling sad that therapy is coming to an end. Keep that in mind when you are reading these answer responses. What is the most ethical course of action? This is an ethical question. It needs to be answered in an ethical response. A says express the sadness openly and ask if the family feels the same. Please don't ever do that. Don't ever do that, okay? It's bad enough therapy is ending. The family could also be experiencing some anxiety. Please don't project what you have onto the family, okay? B says keep personal feelings private and proceed professionally. I get it. It sounds nice. But B is making it seem like now you're not talking to anyone and you need to be talking to somebody. Not the family, though, but you need to be talking to somebody. C says continue maintaining professionalism in session. That is exactly what you need to be doing. D says extend therapy to avoid the feelings of loss. You can't hold your clients hostage. Just because you feel sad doesn't mean this family needs to be stuck in therapy with you, okay? C says continue maintaining professionalism in session. I need to maintain that professionalism in session, but then after session, I also need to do what? Continue to maintain those professional standards, which is going to be to do what? Seek consultation or talk to a supervisor, whatever the case may be. Sometimes the obvious answer response is not going to be there. It's not. You then have to look for what? One of the best answer responses of the 4. That obvious answer response about seeking consultation and speaking to a supervisor or a trusted colleague, it's not there. But C is your best answer of the 4. Oh, I forgot we did pop quizzes. When a client reports hopelessness at termination, the therapist should first do what? You need to first do what? You have to assess the risk, see what the intent is. Do they have means? Do they have access? Even if it's at termination, your legal and ethical duty is to still assess and make sure that that client is going to be safe. Protect the client, protect your license. In preparing a client for terminating therapy, the best approach would be to do what? Now, this is like your best approach. How are you going to address the best way when it comes to termination? A says discuss and stick to a set of numbers so the client knows what to expect. Doesn't sound good, right? B says allow enough time to explain to the client why you think termination is indicated. Okay. C says have advanced knowledge of limitations and exclusions in the client's insurance plan to sufficiently prepare for the client. Now that's a bit much because you're doing too much with the whole insurance policy and everything. That's not the best approach when it comes to terminating therapy, right? You got to prepare them for it. Not have anything to do with their insurance. You just need to prepare them for it, right? D says explore the circumstances under which the client will feel ready to terminate. Out of these 4 responses, which one of these 4 responses is collaborative? There's only one. A says discuss and stick to a set number of sessions. That means that's the therapist setting what's going to happen. So A is out. Allow enough time to explain to the client why you think termination is indicated. Again, that's not collaborative. And C again about the insurance plan and all of that has nothing to do with that. D is the only one that is collaborative, where you're going to be exploring with the client in which they feel like they are ready to terminate. That is your best response of the 4. Keep in mind, termination is collaborative, okay? At termination, a strategic therapist reinforces what? To maintain changes in the family interactions. Strategic therapist uses what to help with some of those disabling sequences. They use paradoxal directives. They call them paradoxal interventions, paradoxes. That is what they use to maintain the changes in the family interactions. Now, you keep doing the same thing over and over again. A strategic therapist is going to do what? Well, keep doing it in hopes that you're going to stop, hopes that you're going to give it up. A termination, a strategic therapist reinforces their paradoxical interventions, paradoxical directives, paradoxes, whatever the case may be, in order to maintain changes in family interactions. Sarah, an 18-year-old female, comes to you visibly upset and shaken. Sarah tells you that she was sexually assaulted in the parking lot of her school and is scared to go home and tell her parents because they'll know that she had ditched school. How do you proceed? Let's go back and look at this. We got some red flags that are flagging here, and we can't ignore it, right? She's shaken. She's visibly upset. She's 18 years old. She's scared to go home. She was sexually assaulted, but she can't go home and tell her parents because then they'll know that she ditched school. How do you, as a therapist, proceed with a situation like this? Okay. A says, contacts Sarah's parents as Sarah is still attending high school and is therefore a minor. That has nothing to do with anything. I get she's 18 years old and she's still in high school, but still, our clients are still bound by confidentiality, and that's you breaking confidentiality, right, to her parents, right? B says, direct Sarah to immediately go to the hospital for a full examination with the clothes that she was wearing. Okay, let's come back to it. C says, call the police and report Sarah's assault. Now, again, our clients have autonomy. So when it comes to sexual assault, we don't call the police. We don't tell our clients to call the police because then it takes away from their autonomy. If they want to report it, they can report it. I get that it's a crime, but our code of ethics says that our clients have autonomy. We do not have to call the police. We don't tell them to call the police, right? D says, encourage Sarah to go to the hospital and contact the police. Here it is again with that word encourage. Here is the thing when it comes to encourage in some of these answer responses. The word encourage for certain scenarios, such as a crisis situation, is not sufficient enough. When I see the word encourage, and I've said this so many times, it's like, to me, it makes it seem like, do they have to do it or they don't have to do it? We do not tell our clients, like I said, to contact the police when situations like this arise. So encouraging her to do that is you, again, taking away from her autonomy. If you take a look at B, you're going to direct her immediately. The words direct and immediately, when it comes to these kind of vignettes, are your specifiers for sometimes being the best answer, if it is the best answer of the four. You're going to tell her to go to the hospital and get a full examination with the clothes that she was wearing. Here's the thing about this question. When you have a client in the vignette that was sexually assaulted, raped, whatever the case may be, anything could have happened to her that we can't provide her with. We are not doctors. We need to refer her to a doctor. Now, this is me sounding like I'm adding to the vignette, but in order for me to make this make sense, I am going to say this. She was sexually assaulted. This vignette does not say how she was sexually assaulted. She could have been sodomized. She could have been badly beaten down below. We don't know that. So we need to refer her to a place that can help her with that. We are not a doctor. She could have contracted something. We don't know because we are not doctors. That is the only time that I have seen an answer that the therapist is telling somebody what to do is questions like these, right? ChatGPT AATBS, Diane Gerhardt, Jerry Grossman, I learned that this is how you answer a question like this. I have used these questions in multiple different ways. I have put them in ChatGPT, and they are all answered the exact same way that Diane Gerhardt taught me, AATBS taught me, and Jerry Grossman taught me. Stay away from the words encourage and normalize when you have a visible red flag in the vignette. It is far too nice of sounding for it to be the best answer when it is clear that there is something else that needs your immediate attention. We do not tell our clients to call the police. We do not tell them to go and talk to the police when something happens. They have their own autonomy to do so. Janet comes to therapy depressed and expressing suicidal ideation. You refer her to a psychiatrist who prescribes an antidepressant. Almost immediately, Janet becomes socially active and she begins to talk about quitting her job and starting a new career. She tells you that she doesn't need much sleep and spends her nights doing research about her new career on the internet. How best would you proceed? Now, let's go back because we've got some things that's going on here in this vignette, right? She's depressed, suicidal ideation. She started a new antidepressant, but now she's socially active. She's quitting her job. She's starting a new career. Now she's online all night long looking up this new career. She's not getting much sleep. So what do we need to do, right? We've got some red flags that are flagging here, right? A says initiate the termination process since Janet is no longer depressed. Here's the thing. It doesn't really mention that she's not, but obviously since she's not depressed, then she must be in a manic phase, right? So A is going to automatically be out. B says reassess Janet's treatment goals now that she is no longer depressed. Again, there it is with that depression. This vignette is not about her being depressed. Those are your distractors because they started out by telling you that she was in therapy for being depressed. But this question is not about her being depressed. Okay. C says refer her back to her psychiatrist for a reevaluation. Okay, sounds nice. D says consider involuntary hospitalization since she presents a danger to herself and other. There is nothing mentioned in the vignette about her being a danger to herself or others. So that's automatically out. C says refer her back to her psychiatrist for a reevaluation. That is the best answer out of the four. I mean, you could have sat there and started to be like, what new career are you talking about? How you found this career that fast? What are you doing like this? You could have did all of that. If we could have been another best answer that suited that. But out of the four, C is going to be your best answer. Always, always, always pay attention to the distractors that are in the answer responses. A and B are your distractors. I see depressed. It wants you to look there, but don't go there. Stay the course. This question was not about her being depressed. As described in the DSM-5-TR, blank is likely diagnosis for an adult who has experienced a depressed mood for most of the day on most of the days for 2 years. Which diagnosis is this? I think when we did this, we also talked about bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 as well. This answer is going to be persistent depressive disorder, PDD, 2 years depressed most of the day on most days for 2 years. MDD, major depressive disorder, is how long? 2 weeks. 2 weeks for MDD, 2 years for PDD. Okay. When a therapist is working with a couple in couples therapy and one partner is having an affair and is unwilling to admit or to stop it, the best option is for the therapist to do what? Let's go back because I think we had a good discussion about this question too. We have one partner that's having an affair and the other one is unwilling to admit it or to stop having the affair. So here's the thing. I think we had a few people on the line that night, on the call that night, and they work with couples and they also have had some experiences when it came to this. I've never had that experience before, so it was so nice to hear how other people work with the couples that have had that. So A says refer the couple to their own individual therapy. Okay, let's look at the rest of the other responses. B says reveal the secret during a couple session. Well, you can't. Because why? Breaks confidentiality. couples and families, one of the biggest things that you struggle with when it comes to working with couples and families, and if you're going to be seeing one of them individually, is the confidentiality piece, because you can't just walk in that room and start blurting out stuff. As much as I want to be like, yo, he cheating on you, so I think you need to leave him, I can't do that. Yo, she's stepping out on you, I can't do that. As nice as that would sound, we can't do that, right? Confidentiality still takes place. C says provide an ultimatum to the partner having an affair so that he shares the secret in a couple session. The issue about C is that word ultimatum, I don't like. It makes it sound like you, I don't know, persuaded him, maybe. And I think this night we talked about the code of ethics, because we did work through the code of ethics this night, and I did make an example about the therapist does have the power in a relationship when it comes to our clients. There is a power imbalance where we influence our clients. So we have to be very, very, very careful when it comes to things like doing C. You don't have to give an ultimatum. You go over your no secrets policy, and your no secret policies is going to lay everything flat out and tell them, hey, I can't be bound by this, because when you have a couple that you're working with, and then now you know this huge secret about an affair, anything that is like could also impair the progress that you're making with this couple, I can't do that, because then now like I'm being triangulated in, and I don't want that. It makes me feel some type of way, because now I know this dirty, nasty secret that you got, and even though I think that you a dog for doing this, or you just some type of woman that is just like, how could you do this to this man? He's so nice to you. He's so good to you. I don't want to hold on to that, because if I'm sitting there in therapy and you say something out of pocket, now I'm about to be, almost saying it, and I can't say it. D says continue to provide therapy with the client. You can't. If you haven't gotten that yet, you can't do it. So A is going to be the best answer. You need to refer them for individual therapy. I know people had questions about the no secrets policy. The no secrets policy is not in the code of ethics. It's not actually written in there, but the confidentiality piece is. And that lets you know that no secrets policy means, hey, if you got this going on, you either need to share it or I'm going to have to split you two up. That's how it goes. Harrison arrives to his appointment visibly angry. He paces the floor of the room and informs you that his wife admitted that she has been in a sexual relationship with her friend for the past year. You notice that he is unable to think clearly and rationally. He says that he wants to kill her and then kill himself. Given the client's current state, you take this threat very seriously. The therapist should do what first? I remember this question, and everybody had such good insight on this question. So let's go back over this again. We've got some infidelity going on in a relationship. We've got a threat, a very viable threat. He's going to kill her, and then he's going to kill himself. What is the therapist to do first? A says to notify the police. I mean, you can. And then what happens next? B says hospitalize the client. Okay. C says maintain confidentiality. No, you can't maintain confidentiality because you got these clear threats. He said he's going to kill her, and then he's going to kill himself. For God's sakes, this man is upset that his wife has been stepping out on him. You take it seriously, so you cannot maintain confidentiality. D says warn the wife. Not enough information. Not enough. And it's not enough to just warn the wife, because when you warn the wife, what happened to Harrison's? What's going to happen to him? He said that he's going to kill his wife, and then he's going to kill himself. So at this point right now, what do you have to do? You have to protect 2 people right now. No, actually, you got to protect 3. You got to protect the wife, you got to protect the husband, and you damn sure better protect your license, which is you. So you better make the best decision. A says notify the police. You can, but it's not enough information, right? B says hospitalize the client. Your best bet is to hospitalize this client. And I'm going to sum this up and make it make sense. Because when you hospitalize that client, what are you going to do? You're going to call 911. You're going to notify the police. And then the wife is going to find out about it. So hospitalize the client. You can no longer protect the wife, and you cannot protect him. You also have to protect him. Harrison is also the factor in this vignette that you also have to protect. Notifying the police is not enough, because Harrison also needs to be protected. And the best way to protect him is to hospitalize him by calling 911, sending an ambulance, warning the wife, which is breaking confidentiality makes B the best answer. Ralph has been seeing you for individual counseling for 1 month. You know that he has exhibited suicidal ideation and you have been monitoring him very closely. What information would most heighten your concern regarding the need for involuntary hospitalization? Now, when we see questions like this, it's like you want to be looking at the factors, right? The factors of why we would involuntarily hospitalize a client. Ralph has been seeing you for individual therapy 1 month. You know he has suicidal ideation. You've been monitoring him. But now, what do you think is going to heighten the reason for you to hospitalize him against his will? A says he has a plan with no timetable and no outside methods of support. Now, A is not high risk enough for you to involuntarily hospitalize him, even though it may sound like it. He got a plan, but he doesn't have a timetable, which is weird, right? Because to me, it's like, oh, he does need to go, right? B says he has a gun and a timetable and will not commit to a safety plan. Okay. C says he has a plan and a history of poor impulse control. Not enough information. He has a plan, but poor impulse control, what does that mean? Is he just going to just do it? Okay, well, when and where and how, right? D says he has been hospitalized for suicidal ideation twice in the past 15 years. That's not it's not a high risk for you to do involuntary hospitalization. But if you take a look at B, he has a gun and a timetable. So he has the gun, he knows when he's going to do it, and he's refusing to commit to a safety plan. Meaning, okay, he has access, he has a time, probably, we don't know where, but he is at a higher risk because he has access to a gun and he has an intent and he has a time in which he's going to do it. And he will not commit to a safety plan. Okay? Alrighty, I'm wrapping up right here. I'm going to stop right there because we did go past the questions that we did. There was one more question than what we did during the study meet Wednesday night. But if you have any questions or concerns about any of the questions that I went through tonight, please feel free to leave me a question, comment, contact me on Facebook. If you have my number, send me a text message, and I will be more than happy to walk you through it. I hope these questions make sense to you. I hope that now you learn just a little bit more of how to answer the termination questions in some of these crisis situations when they come up during termination. Alrighty, everybody, I will talk to you all later.